My first question has to do with a letter that Chairman Peters and I sent to CISA back on April 5th. Mr. Wales, I know you're aware of this letter, and we asked that by April 20th we have a response. It's important that we have the best information possible to be able to deal with two things. One is reauthorization of some of your programs that is occurring next year. We want to be smart about this and be sure that as we're reauthorizing things like the Einstein program, that it's done properly. But second, we're also working on legislation, as I said earlier, to ensure that we can respond to immediate threats and strengthen, your abilities, frankly. We're concerned that we haven't had a response yet, except for a few documents, all of which had previously been provided, I'm told, to this committee and to the Congress. Will you commit to providing a complete response to the letter this morning?
Yes, we will respond. I know that we are in active discussions with your staff, and that actually a briefing has been set for next week with the department, who obviously has responsibility for DHS systems, including some of that CISA, that supports CISA. And CISA will provide to the committee next week that get into some of the more details of some of the questions that were asked as part of the letter. But we are actively working this to ensure we provide as complete a response as possible.
Can you give us a time frame?
I cannot sitting here right now, but we are working with your staff to provide as much detail as possible, as quickly as possible.
Well, let's suggest a time frame here this morning that's appropriate. 2 weeks?
We will work in 2 weeks to provide as much information as we can. And again, my one concern is CISA does not have all of the information, is not the, particularly where questions related to the
If there's something we've asked that's inappropriate, let us know. But my sense is that what we've asked is relevant and appropriate to your reauthorizations and, frankly, coming up with legislation that's more helpful to responding to some of the attacks we talked about today.
Nope. And my only concern is that I can't agree on behalf of the entire department because the DHS CIO is the one ultimately responsible for DHS systems. And
let's set a milestone in 2 weeks that we'll have substantially all the answers, at least those that you have the ability to answer.
Okay.
Because I think sooner the better, since we're moving ahead with legislation even during this month before the next congressional recess.
Agreed.
Second is, we talked a lot about funding today, and the American Rescue Plan, as you know, provided $650 million to CISA for various ways to help modernize cyber systems. You mentioned hardening the cloud earlier. Can you, in 1 minute, just tell us, or less, precisely how you expect to use that $650 million?
Sure. So four primary lines of effort. First is beginning to expand our cyber defensive teams so that we can spend more time doing persistent hunt activity inside of federal agencies. Second is the deployment of new technologies and sensors inside of networks, endpoint detection and response tools that will give us better visibility for agencies and better visibility for CISA into what's happening on those networks. Three, the deployment of pilot secure threat-hardened cloud environment for business systems to allow us to test the most effective way to secure and defend those, and then promulgate a reference architecture across the .gov.
That would be focused primarily on the private sector and their ability to use a hardened cloud?
Well, it's primarily focused on testing a private cloud for the federal government, civilian agencies that more federal agencies can then use. Right now, there is, I'd say, a variety of different kind of cloud security environments that federal agencies have adopted, and we want more consistency.
Some more secure than others, okay. But it wouldn't respond to the colonial type challenge?
No, I mean, again, the
What's the fourth one?
The fourth one is additional funding to help accelerate the move towards more defensible and secure architectures. It's helping agencies move towards zero trust-based approaches for their security and build more defensible and secure network configurations and architecture.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. This was part of the COVID-19 package, American Rescue Package. I'm glad the money is being used and used productively. I can't see how it has any connection to COVID-19, by the way, which is unfortunately true with much of that legislation. But the money's been appropriated. We need the help right now, and we will be eager to see, how this money is being spent. We'll be overseeing it, and my sense is that what you're doing is going to be helpful to the broader mission of CISA that we're trying to work on through legislation. Final question has to do with what just happened with regard to SolarWinds. There has been a news report that has not been confirmed or denied by Department of Homeland Security that the SolarWinds attack not only attacked agencies and, as you know, had a major detrimental impact on 9 different federal agencies at least, but specifically, it was an attack on DHS. And the 2 areas, according to this report, were subject to this massive attack. One is DHS's foreign threat hunting teams were actually breached. And second is that the Secretary of DHS's email account was actually breached. Can you confirm that that's true?
Sir, in an open hearing, what I can say is that a small number of accounts at the department and at CISA were compromised during this incident. And
Are the foreign threat hunting teams part of CISA?
we have threat hunting teams. Again, I'm not sure about the use of the term foreign there, but we do have threat hunting teams. Those are the teams that provide incident response and hunt support to our federal agency partners. But I will just make one small comment, and that is the compromise at DHS only affected our business email networks, did not affect our operational networks where most of our cybersecurity work is done, things that manage our Einstein system, the system that our incident response teams use as part of when they go on site and support other agencies. So this would be, the compromises were limited to business email and not to our actual operational work.
Can you confirm that the Secretary's email account was breached?
I'm going to defer that question to the department CIO who was responsible for it.
As you know, former Secretary Wolf confirmed publicly that his email account was breached. He said so on April 12th, 2021. I'd also like to put the AP story in the record. I'd like to ask unanimous consent, Mr. Chairman, to do so. That indicated that the former Secretary and that DHS was compromised by this attack. We need to know the information. And if it's classified, we understand. We've had a classified briefing, by the way, since you and I last talked at a public hearing where we would have had the opportunity to receive that information, and we did not. So we need to know what's going on to be able to legislate properly and to provide the proper oversight. I want to end by thanking you for your testimony today, for your ongoing communication with me and our staff, and Senator Peters and his staff, and your professionalism. It's an impossible task right now. The enemy is moving very quickly, both foreign state actors and cyber criminals, and we have to move even more quickly. We have to stay ahead of them. And whether it's personnel and dragging our feet on having the right cyber workforce is a major frustration to me and the federal government. We talked about the 2014 legislation that's still not properly enacted, or whether it's with regard to keeping our systems up to speed, and particularly what's going on in the cloud. We have to stay ahead of them. And so I hope you will remain committed to this task and provide the leadership to be able to respond to this very difficult challenge. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.